Hi guys, it's Ben here. Today I'm going to be walking through the Archetype Hack the Box machine. This is part of the starting point. It's the tier 2 machines. It's part of the starting point series, and it's a fun box. It's a Windows box. It's the first of the starting point machines which have actually involved some sort of, at a very basic level, privilege escalation. But let's get on with it. So I've copied the IP there. I've got an Archetype walkthrough directory. I'm going to start off by just getting some more tabs here, and I'm going to get a walkthrough.txt there. I'm going to start off with an nmap of this IP, the IP. I'm going to cover all the ports, just a very quick and easy nmap scan. On this, I'm actually going to make some nmap directory. I'm going to make a recon directory, and I'm going to make an exploits directory. So, yeah, basic port scan covering all the ports, no service detection or anything, and I'm going to output this to nmap initial.txt. I'll let that do its thing, and while that's doing it, we'll just have a look at the flags we're looking for to begin with. So, task 1 is which TCP port is hosting a database server? What is the name of the non-administrative share available over SMB? What is the password identified in the file on the SMB share? So those are the first 3 flags. We'll go back. Okay, we can see this. The initial nmap scan is done now. We've identified a fair few ports. It looks like on port 1433 there is a Microsoft SQL server. However, we don't know this for certain. We can do a service scan. We'll also do default scripts and operating system. And we'll put in the IP there. The ports we want to do this on is 135, 139, 445. So we're covering off the SMB ports as well. 1433, 5985, 47001. So it's not going to cover all the ports, but it will cover the large majority, and I once again need to be sudo, and I also forgot to output this to nmap thorough, like so. I'll let that do its job, and I'm going to go into the recon directory. So we know there's an SMB share. We'll wait till this this service scan runs. This also has the default script scan. And the default scripts run some SMB scripts which will be useful to this challenge. It will tell us some of the security mode. Is guest authentication allowed? What SMB protocols are being used? So we can see it's ran now. We can now have more confirmation on port 1433 that the Microsoft SQL server is actually running. So that's our first flag. So what TCP port is hosting a database server? That will be port 1433. The next task we can't do, we need to do some more enumeration. If you look at the SMB scripts, the SMB OS Discovery NSE script has told us, look, it's using the Windows Server 2009. The computer name is Archetype. That's the domain name, you could say. Yeah, the computer name, sorry. SMB security mode, so guest authentication is allowed, and that sort of gives us a hint of what to do next. So as we can authenticate with guest, there's a good chance we can list the ports. So let's just do that now. 10.129.218, yeah, 218.249. So the TAC L on SMB client refers to listing the SMB shares which are available. The TAC N is for authenticating with the null user. So this you could basically, instead of doing this, you could say, look, the username is null, and then it will prompt you for your password. You won't enter anything. That's the same as doing the TAC N. And I'm going to tee this to SMB shares.log. So I think that's all. We'll run that. and we can now see the shares which are available. So the shares which end in a $sign, those are the administrative shares. And we can see there's one share which isn't an administrative share. This is the backup share. So what I'll start by doing is, instead of listing the shares now, I'm going to actually connect to the shares and see what is on this SMB share if I can connect to it with the null user. So we'll start off by going through all the administrative shares. So let's go through the admin share. There we go. Access denied. We can't access that one. Okay, what about the C share? Access denied again. And what about the IPC? Usually this can be accessed with a null session. And yeah, we can access this. If we list it, no. It looks like there's no contents in this one. So that's not too useful. The only, if we just cut out SMB underscore shares, we can see that the one we didn't do is the non-administrative share, which is backups. So we can try connect to that one, see what that one returns us. So let's try backups. Once again, authenticating with the guest user, and we get a successful connection. If we list ls to list the contents of the share, we can see it contains this prod.dts-config file. So you can use the get command to download this. So get prod.dts-config. It's successfully downloaded, so we can exit this, and we can see we now have the contents of this file. Let's just Google what this DTS config is. That's not what I want to do. DTS config file. So the DTS config file is an XML configuration file used to apply property values to SQL Server integration services packages. So it contains one or more configurations that consists of metadata, such as the server name, database names, or other connection properties. So this is useful. It may contain metadata and other useful information. Let's just go to the Hackbox website and see what flags we've got so far. So we can see what is the name of the non-administrative share available over SMB. That's the one which wasn't entering a $sign, and that's backups. So we've got that one here. Now let's actually inspect the contents of this DTS config file. So let's cat out prod.dts-config, and we can see, yes, like the Google search said, this is an XML file. The two useful bits of information are here. There's a password and a user ID contained. So I'm going to copy this like so. I'm going to get rid of this colon, sorry, that took me a while to say. So we've got these password and user ID. As this is a configuration file for the SQL server, there's a good chance these will be the credentials for the server. So we've got this archetype, which is like the computer name, the host name, and then there's the username, which will be SQL_SVC, and the password there is megacorp123. So you can probably get some more flags from here. So what is the password identified on the file on the SMB share? That would be the megacorp password. So we've got that flag. Nice. Okay. The next flag is what script from the in-packet collection can be used to establish an authenticated connection to the Microsoft SQL Server. And the next question after that is what extended stored procedure of the Microsoft SQL Server can be used in order to spawn a Windows command shell. So those are two flags we can sort of get in one. So let's just search up in-packet MS SQL Server. MS SQL. I cannot type. Microsoft SQL Server. There we go. And we've got this MS SQL client, part of the in-packet project, which was one of the flags. So we can enter that as the flag MS SQL client. So we can use this file to authenticate to the SQL Server from a Linux box. So let's actually go back out. Let's clear this up a bit. and we'll clear this one down here as well, just to get a nice clean terminal. We'll cd into exploits, and we'll look for this file. So I'm going to use the locate command to search for this file, and it's the msql client.py file. And there's quite a few instances of it on this Kali box. So I'm going to copy this one here. So I'm going to use the command copy, and then I'll put the file location of the thing I'm copying, and then the dot is the current directory. So now we've got this file in the current directory. We can go Microsoft SQL Client, and then I'm going to get rid of this, don't want to spoil it. And this basically tells us the syntax of this tool. So we've got all the flags up here. There's a Windows auth flag, and if you look in the options here, it basically says whether or not to use Windows authentication, and the default is set to false. So if we don't put this flag here, it won't use Windows authentication. So that is definitely something we need to consider adding, as we've probably got Windows credentials here. And then there's also the target here. So you put that's the target, that's what we're trying to connect to, as well as the username, domain, and password. So it shows the syntax to provide the target here. So you do the domain, this would be archetype / the username, which would be SQL_SVC, the password, and then you at the IP address. So let's try this. Microsoft SQL client.py. Okay, so we know the domain is Archetype, and then we use a /, and then we put the username here, SQL_SVC, and then you put the password here, which is megacorp123, and then you put the IP, which is 10.129.218.249, and just for example, if we don't put the Windows auth, we get this login failed. If we put the Windows auth there, we're successfully in. So that is the answer to task 4. It's the Microsoft SQL client.py file. And then what extended stored procedure of this MS SQL server can be used to spawn a command shell? So we've got this SQL server shell. We can list the commands possible to us by, it says press help or enter help for extra commands, and then we've got a list of the commands. So we can see there's this xp_cmd shell here, and this executes command using the xp_command shell. So we can try this. So we can do x command shell, and we could perhaps put cmd.exe. Let's see if this pops open a shell. And it looks like it did. One thing to mention, because this isn't the first time I've solved this challenge on the box. When you first try this, it may give this response instead. The server has blocked access to this procedure because it's turned off. So when you first try this, you'll get this error. Because I had already previously done this challenge, and then I basically redid it and recorded it, I was able to do it. You would first get this error, and then you would realize, look, you have to use this enable xp command shell. So you would enter this command here. It tells you to enter reconfigure. You would enter the reconfigure command, and then you would do it again. No, cmd.exe, try pop a cmd shell, and it sort of looks like you're getting a shell. However, it kills itself and then goes back to this SQL shell. So you can't really do anything here. You could try command shell. You could try do like who am I, and you can run simple shells through the command line, but you can't get a full reverse shell. You've got some remote code execution, but you can't get a full shell access. So there is always the possibility you could perhaps use some PowerShell. You could try find a PowerShell reverse shell. However, I really like Meterpreter. Meterpreter has a lot of tools available built into it. So I wondered if, I'm going to clear this out. I wondered if you went into MSF console and there is going to be a search command shell. Was that the one? Let me just. I think that was the command. And yeah, there is. By the way, that gets us the fifth flag. What is the extended sort of procedure which can be used to spawn a shell? And it's this XP_command shell. So now we know that. I'm just going to get this out of the screen. There we go. I'll move this away. Now we know that we've gone into Metasploit and we've searched up XP_command shell. We have found an exploit which we can use to perhaps gain a Meterpreter shell. So let's, yes, clear this up a bit. We can show the options. So we've got it, what it seems like a shell. We can set, sorry, I don't know what I'm on about. We've got a module which looks like it stages a Meterpreter shell, so we can set some of the regular config. So the L host, the listening host, will be ton0. My ton0, my VPN IP, which is actually shown up here. I could have done this, for example, and it would set it automatically, or I could have done it manually. The L port is the port we're listening on. And let's clear this out again. Let's show options. We're looking at the top here. So the password, so set password. There is a few things we need to set here. It's going to be megacorp 123. The R host is going to be the IP we're targeting, which is 10.129.218.249. What else do we need to set? The R port is already correct. That is the default Microsoft SQL port. The username, set username is SQL_SVC. Set use_Windows authentication. That is a property we want to. It's a default set to false. We want to set it to true. And we need a domain option set. I can't see it here actually. If I now have set this to true, is there? If I show options again, is it there now? No. So I'm going to set domain, and that's equal to archetype. Let's see if this does it. Okay, how was it done? Archetype, like so. Show options now. Is that up there? I can't see it, but let's just see if this works. For example, I think those are all the required ones we have to set. So let's just try this. Let's run this and see if this goes. So it looks like it is successfully uploading the stager, and then hopefully we'll see once it uploads we'll get a Meterpreter shell. I expect you could probably gain some sort of reverse shell through the SQL server. It's the MS SQL Server client in packet file, but I tried for about 5 minutes and just realised it would probably be more efficient to use the Meterpreter shell instead. So look, we've got a Meterpreter shell. What else? What other flags are there? So what script can be used in order to search possible paths to escalate privileges on Windows hosts? If you've got experience privilege escalating on Linux, you would have heard of linps. However, Windows also has a linps alternative, which is winps, the Windows Privilege Escalation Awesome Scripts. So I already have got the bat file for this somewhere in my box. It may be in, let me just try find it here. CD into desktop. Use CD into useful files to center box. yeah, I've got the limpy script and the wimpy's script here. They come in handy. So what I'm going to do is set a Python HTTP server on here to try download this file. I'm going to go into here. I'm going to pop open a shell like so. So now I've got a shell, and I'm going to go into CD users. We obviously that SQL users are there, so I'm going to CD into SQL over SVC. The reason I'm going into this file is I don't know the permissions of this SQL SVC user. I can't write it anywhere, so I'm going into somewhere where I reckon I have write permissions, which is this file. So I'm in my home directory place, and I want to download this WinPiece file. I know you can do this with PowerShell, so I think will PS work. PowerShell. Invoke web request, which is like a wget alternative, and then I think it's URI. I may have to Google this, and then you set the file here you want to download. So 10.10.16.29 on port. Okay, there's a problem here. What port did I use for this? No, I used port 444. I sometimes use the interpreter port on 1234. It's alright. 1234. The file I want to download is winpeas.bat, like so. I want to output this to winpeas.bat as well. So we see we've got the get request here. We can go dir. We can see there's the winpeas.bat file here. So we successfully transferred this Windows privilege escalation script. This will automate a lot of the process, what I could have done manually, in one script. So let's just run this and see what paths for privilege escalation it finds. This may take some time. I can get rid of this one here, but hopefully it will find some results that we can use to privilege escalate. So let's go back to here. So yeah, there's this what script can be used to search for possible paths. That's the WinPeas. So we've got 3 more flags left. There's this what file contains the administrative password. So, and then there's the user and the root flag. We probably could have got the user flag before running this WinPeas script, but it doesn't matter. And I'll let this load. This may take some time, so I may skip this part. So we can see in the WinPeas there's this files in the registry that may contain credentials. So we can see this file here is under the SQL SVC user, and it looks like it's the PowerShell commands, the console host _ history. What I will do is, what I tried to do is see if this was the flag, and it was the flag. So this flag contains the administrator's password. What I'm going to do is background this just so I can get a normal shell. I will just copy this file location here. I'll put this in here just for notes. And then I'll go down and I'll change my directory to this. I want to go to this location. And it couldn't find it. Okay. It's because you can't go to a file. That is why. I'll get rid of this bit here. There we go. So we've got this console host.history file. I'm going to use the Windows alternative of cat, and that is type, to basically type the contents of this txt file, and I'll put it in here as well. So it looks like the administrator credentials are administrator and then megacorp _ admin, like so. What I'm going to do is go back to this file here. I'm now going to background this. I'm going to I didn't mean to do that, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to go back into MSF console now. We know these are the administrator credentials, and if you remember from our, let's just cd back out there into hack the box and then Archetype walkthrough. There's in our mmap one, cat out the furrow, there is this SMB port. You can use the PS exec tool, which is part of the in-packet tool, to basically gain a reverse shell through SMB. As we've got some administrator credentials, there is a good chance these will be used in SMB. So we could either use the PS exec tool locally, just on our Kali machine, or we could use Meterpreter again to we'll search for PS exec, and we're looking for this one. This is basically a nice Meterpreter reverse shell from PS exec. We'll clear this out, we'll show the options, we'll set the SMB domain, and that's going to be Archetype. We're going to set the SMB user, which is administrator. We're going to set the SMB user. We're going to set the SMB pass, which is megacorp admin, like so. And I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to set the L host to 10.10.16.29. I'm going to set the L port this time to 1234. What else do I need? Oh yeah, I need to set the R hosts to, what IP was this again? 10.129.218.249. I'm going to run this, and hopefully, yep, sending stage. It looks like we're going to get an interpreter session. We are. Nice. We're now entity authority system. We've used credentials gained through WinP's enumeration to find past PowerShell commands which will run. Those PowerShell commands were using the administrative credentials. We've now used those credentials via SMB PSExec to privilege escalate to system. So we can now find the flags. We can cd into users. There's this SQL under SVC. We could have found this flag before. Into desktop. If we dir, we can see there's the user.txt. We can type this out to get the user.txt. Nice. And we can go into the administrator. CD administrator. CD desktop. Type root.txt. And we've got the root.txt flags. So this is this challenge complete. We've got all the credentials. And I hope you've enjoyed.